I'm just wondering, it's a question for the whole board. In view of the protestations from the BBC and Sky News over the last 48 hours of the total unbiased reporting, do we have any redress, not only for their totally bigoted and biased reporting on the smoking ban, but for the lack of reporting of the undemocratic cancellation of our conference?
I think that's better. You answer
Judith, yeah, I think that will come to the fore when we get a win with the ombudsman. As I'm quite a lot of quite senior fonctionaries in the building think that we will get. Believe it or not, there are even bureaucrats in that building who think this is pretty disgraceful. So this isn't really straight down party lines or anything like that. I think it would be extremely difficult for them not to report that when we get a win with the ombudsman. And we have actually a reasonably good working relationship with the BBC correspondent out here, Mark Mardell, who's the only BBC man who's ever bought me a lunch. So we are on reasonable working terms. And I think if they were getting off sort of the travel brochure type of stuff, which is the BBC's approach to the sacrosanct European Union, we might get a result on that. Incidentally, some of you may or may not know, and I'm sorry to be parochial when it comes to the BBC, the BBC 18 months ago took a £100 million interest-free loan from the European Union Bank, which just to ensure that they know their place when it comes to reporting the European Union. Those Englishmen amongst you and Scotsmen might be sort of surprised a little bit that the BBC absolutely never, under any circumstances at all, criticised this place for any reason at all. But then if somebody came, we all have our price, don't we? You'd give me 100 million and I'll probably be a little bit less critical of this place myself. A lot less, let's be honest, a lot less. As to Sky, that is interesting because they are supposed to be a lot more disinterested given that their salaries and their senior appointments don't come from number 10 Downing Street. You have to understand also that Sky TV it operates under a very controlled licensing procedure. They do not want to make gratuitous enemies themselves, so Sky TV isn't quite what it says on the tin. Sky TV is there to make money. It is not to inform, as opposed to the BBC, which is public service broadcasting, which pretends it is there to inform.
Neil Clark, followed by the gentleman over there, followed by Marietta Abels, followed by your question, followed by Pat Nurse.
Whoa, I've got to keep up with this.
That's all right, I have to. That's my job today.
Hello, I'm Neil Clark, a journalist based in Britain. I'd like to ask the panel, particularly Mr. Bloom, actually, what they think about the sort of political situation particularly within the European Parliament, about sort of putting together a sort of bloc to sort of fight these terrible laws and the draconian smoking bans that are taking place across the continent. We all know that UKIP has, to its great credit, has got policies to reverse the bans in Britain, and parties associated with UKIP too. But I'd like to sort of ask if there are any other signs of life from other sort of political groupings in the European Parliament, and that if possible a sort of coalition could be formed of parties from the left and the right, from all over, who are concerned about freedom, or whether that's sort of naive or whether that's just sort of going to be impossible. Because looking at the position in Britain politically, I recently wrote a piece contrasting New Labour with Old Labour, and I think and why New Labour was so fanatical about the smoking ban. And I think one of the reasons was because Old Labour was very, very friendly to tobacco. You only have to think about Old Labour, and many of the leading figures there were seldom seen without pipes and cigars. Harold Wilson, Peter Shaw, and of course probably the man who embodies the best of Old Labour is Tony Benn, a veteran politician who still refuses to take his pipe out of his mouth when he's travelling by train. And I think if we can sort of build an alliance of parties, libertarian parties such as UKIP, which are standing up for freedom, and the principal sort of parties of the old left, as it were, whether that's feasible, whether that's and whether Mr. Bill will be able to tell us if there are other parties perhaps who can form a block, a sort of freedom block, if you like, to stand up together on this issue. Thanks.
It's a brilliant idea. Yeah. But also, the nearly of the country.
That's that's an interesting and good question. Sorry, we're a little bit to be parochial. I'm a British MEP, and I apologise to so many people who've come so far, and I don't mean to be too parochial, but we have in the political dynamic here a situation where old Labour, if it did nothing else, it did actually to a certain extent look after its own. Working men's clubs and working men's pubs, who are closing all over the place, to the tune of 30 odd a week in the United Kingdom, old Labour would not let that have happened. Neither would old Labour have let working class estates become no-go areas for police and crime-ridden ghettos either. I had no brief for old Labour, I have to say, but they did look after their own. But the trouble is with New Labour, of course, it's all full of minor public school boys who eat brown rice and sun-dried tomatoes and don't go to the pub, and don't go to the rugby club. These people do not interact with ordinary people, rather unlike UKIP MEPs, and I have to say good night to my boss and myself, perhaps we do too much of that, and we have been accused of doing too much of that. Now, there are some libertarians in the Parliament. There are half a dozen very good Tories who are staunch libertarians. There's the UKIP mob, and there are sort of various other groups, but we are fairly disparate, I'm afraid, and that's something that we try and do something about, but not really very well, and that's something from a libertarian point of view we need to improve on, and we know we need to improve on that. This really shouldn't have anything, should it, to do with politics. Whether you have a fag with your pint at your local pub, if that's okay with your landlord, what the hell has that got to do with politics? But yes, it is a libertarian alliance, and it is something that we need to do. What I would counsel all of you here, from democracies with different systems, the only way you can frighten a politician is to threaten him with not being re-elected. That is the only thing. You could sign petitions, and for those of you who saw the Country Alliance, the biggest peacetime demonstration that the country's ever seen, I think, since the Reform Bill. And they just didn't take any notice, because it didn't affect them at the ballot box. So the only way we can hurt them is at the ballot box. And the one way, we've got a campaign on this, one of the great centres of British culture is, of course, the British pub. It's a sphere of influence. And sometimes, I wonder if there's a conspiracy. I wonder that we all know that wonderful institution, the British pub, where you leave your rank in the car park. It's outside. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker comes in for a pint. And you exchange views and ideas. One of the most important institutions, one of the most envied institutions in the world. One can't help but wonder, do they not want us to get together and talk? Do they want us to drink solitary at home with a cigarette and watch television, which is very, very carefully controlled in what they tell you? Believe me, what you see on the television you read on the news is very, very carefully controlled. So is that what they want? But you write to your local man, whoever he may be, whether you're in Canada or West Virginia or wherever you are, write to him and say, look, if you do not represent me on these matters of liberty and personal liberty, I will not just not vote for you myself, I will actively take up the challenge against you. I will deliver leaflets against you as an individual. And if necessary, forget UKIP, forget other smaller parties, whoever they may be. Have a go yourself. Stand as an independent, if nobody else does. Stand and say, I'm Neil Clark, I'm having a go on this one as a libertarian. I don't smoke myself, but I'm having a go for those who do. We can't all... I got into politics, funnily enough, because I thought I'd stop moaning in the pub. Stop moaning in the pub, get off your arse and do something, Godfrey. And to my horror, I got elected, and here I am. You do that too, and we'll make some headway.